Hello and welcome to the show. This is the Mary Grace Show, and I am Mary Grace, the voice of sanity, to help you navigate politics, culture, wellness, faith, and world events. And this is a very interesting show that I have tonight. It's for a lot of you, especially on my Facebook audience, you're going to be wondering like, where did Mary Grace go, and who is she talking to? Because I'm talking to somebody who is a former Mr. Beast talent and influencer, and who is wildly known on YouTube with the Gen Z, also known as the high school crowd. And so this this may blow your mind, but I have ShawnHendrix as my guest tonight. Now, some of you actually may recognize him from the recent efforts during the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, because he has been one of the front and center voices in bringing awareness to what has been going on down in North Carolina. Welcome to the show, Sean. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So I connected with Sean first through the Hurricane Helene relief effort. I kept seeing him turn up on the screen. We had some mutual friends. We kind of followed each other back, DM'd, and things like that. And because of the nature of how busy all of that was for everybody, we didn't really get a chance to connect and get Sean on the show. He was boots
Mhm.
around like nonstop, even to the point where I don't think you were actually sleeping or eating.
No, yeah, the first few weeks were pretty brutal.
Yeah.
There was, like,
Yeah.
moments where we were limited to 1 bottle of water a day, and, the idea of taking time to do any kind of media stuff in the first few weeks just wasn't feasible because of the critical nature of the work. It's just like, I can either do an interview or I can get a Starlink to a fire station.
Right, right, and that became pretty obvious to me, and I was even though I wasn't there, boots on the ground, I'm in Virginia, so I'm about 4 hours away from 4.5 hours from Boone, and Avery County, that kinda thing. My niece lives in Boone, and
Mm.
she had sent us a video the night that it was raining, and her house was, one of the ones with the water swirling around, and, we got on the phone with her and we're saying, "Pack a bag, where are your vehicles? Get a life jacket, like, don't go to sleep." That was the
Oh, yeah.
message we were giving them, and by a miracle, their house was still there the next day, but they were ready to evacuate, and her house, just for context, is pretty close to the Samaritan's Purse headquarters in Boone. So just to give you an idea of the devastation area. And so I shared her video and it went viral. And so that was and then I was just constantly providing updates because of that and because I know other people down there. And so my Facebook page became one of the go-to pages for sharing resources and letting people know this is where you can go for help. And so I was sharing a lot of your stuff because a lot of my Facebook people aren't on X. And that's how I became kind of a go-to North Carolina resource. But I didn't even go down until December when I went to see Ann Vandersteel's film. General Flynn had asked me to come down and check that out and see what the operation was like down in Avery County. So I did that just to spread the awareness. I featured her film here on the channel, and that's my background. But you were boots on the ground, and I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about your past career as a YouTuber, and I want to start with that because I think for my Facebook audience, this is like an uncharted territory, and I want to play a clip of the video of the 100 Days in the Circle and kinda give people an idea that, like, you didn't just, like, fall out of the sky and come from nowhere. Um, but can you tell our listeners a little bit about that part of your story and how you came to be, a YouTube influencer that spent 100 days inside of a circle?
Well, I mean,
It's crazy.
yeah, it's so they bring people into the videos that are subscribers that follow the channel, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I just got reached out to, be in a project, and they really can't tell you much. And then you show up and they drop the most insane thing you ever heard on you, and you have to give them a yes or a no on it. And so I said, "Yeah, we'll do it."
Mhm.
And 2 weeks later, I'd be, in a circle out in a field, then told I had to survive 100 days and win $500,000. I mean, the first few days I was like, is this a dream? Is this real? I was like having an out of body experience.
Mhm.
But then it just worked out so well. I spent 100 days working with their crew as a contestant that I ended up going to work there for the next, 2 years.
Okay.
So that was kind of my foot in the door. It's a weird interview process to spend 100 days, a
Yeah.
weird on the job training program, if you will.
Right, right. And you're also prior to this, you're survivalist. And so it wasn't unusual to think of going and doing something like this. But it was still completely outside the box, or shall we say inside the circle.
Yeah. No, it was just the survival side of it was just making sure I didn't run out of resources, or
Mhm.
do something silly like touch the red line. But then there's just kind of the mental, knowing you got 99 days to go and you're doing the same thing over and over. And then there's the challenges that they put me through. But
Mhm.
all in all, it was a mental game. And I think
Mhm.
about day 3, I was ready to quit, because I realized if I failed, I was going to fail in front of 300 million people. And I'd be known as, oh, your dad's the guy that failed that video. So in my mind, I was like, well, if I just quit now, they'll get somebody else. There's no video with 3 days. And I was like, what am I talking about? I'm not a quitter. Am I going to go to my kids and say, hey, kids, I tapped out?
Mhm.
So once I realized there was no quitting, I just locked in and got through it. And there was just no way other than some kind of medical thing, I was getting out of that circle. But
Right.
it starts to mess with your mind. You realize public failure, like failing in front of that many people, is a pretty intimidating thing.
Right. And for context, so you have a family.
Mhm.
You go to your wife and kids and say, "Hey, I'm doing this thing."
Right.
Right? I went to the sort of interview and this is what they threw at me, and I said, "Yes, I would do it." Now, have you done other types of things where you're in a competition, like The Amazing Race or things like
No.
that? And so this was your first time and really
Mhm.
you're competing against your mind.
Yeah, it's a solo competition.
Yeah,
If you fail, you failed yourself, which
right.
is kind of nerve-wracking because like, "Oh, well, that guy beat me." No, I beat myself. I quit, you know?
That's kinda usually what it comes down to
It really
anyway.
does. It
And
does.
yeah, and but you also, there was a lot of money on the line.
Yeah, it's a $500,000.
Yeah, yeah. I wanna play this clip.
Go for it.
So it's really short. It's just the intro to the, 100 Days in the Circle. I think it's gonna take us off camera. Well, no, hold on a second. If I lose you, just come back. I'm gonna take us off camera here for a second.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I laid a giant circle in the middle of nowhere.
And this is a random subscriber. And if he stays in this circle for 100 days, I'll give him $500,000.
Step inside the circle and the 100-day counter will start. The timer is ticking. He has to survive in this circle for 100 days.
There's nothing here.
There's nothing yet. Crash!
I'm about to drop off a house.
This definitely gives me more confidence.
I bet you didn't know you could lift a house with a crane.
And that zero training. Wait, which one's the gas again?
Look up at the stairs.
You know what, actually,
And inside this house is all the food, clothes, and supplies he needs to survive 100 days.
Oh no!
this could have been a lot worse.
Oh my god. And this is Sean's family. I wanted to let you guys get one final goodbye in before he started the challenge.
No pain, no gain, Dad.
You guys will be here when I walk out of that circle with $500,000. But I'm gonna miss you guys.
Aw.
And I'm gonna cry a little
Okay?
bit.
The video just started and it's already emotional. Good luck. $500,000 is on the line.
To be honest, it's a little emotional, but 300,000 calories, 100 days. I've got a plan. Get the food organized, clothing figured out, figure out a way to keep my mind entertained. And I know if I walk out of that circle, I will regret it forever.
One night down, 99 to go. Let's go get organized.
All right, strategy session number 1. I gotta figure out what I got.
Okay. It's compelling. And I hope everybody goes and watches it. It's fascinating. And so during that time, the big red circle is very obvious. If you
Yeah.
touch it or go outside of it, you're disqualified.
There was one
Um,
rule, and the rule was if I touch that red circle or go over it, the game's over. There's no fixing it, right? They
Mhm.
don't fake things. So it was like, this is real life. If you touch that red circle, we can't fix it. If it's day 99, there's nothing we can do. Everything else was permissible. I could try to get people to bring me things. I could work the system, but I could not leave that circle for any reason.
And did you have a phone?
No, yeah, but
No.
they had an emergency. They had like a security guy that if I had a little microphone like this, could be like, "Hey, I'm having a heart attack," and they'd call an ambulance for me.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
And the house was wired up and you had cameras,
cameras
right?
all over you. Yeah,
Yeah,
24/7.
that's crazy.
It was definitely something to get used to.
Yeah, yeah, that's a little Big Brother-ish. And like, I mean, it seems to me that you had a lot of space. So was there ever any situation where you thought, almost touch the circle? Did
Well,
that
in the very
ever?
beginning of the video, I'm working in the garden, and I kinda put my hand down, and I look, I'm like a foot away from the circle. And I'm just like, "Oh gosh," like, I could easily just accidentally get out. So, very
Mhm.
quickly, I decided to take the firewood they gave me and build like a secondary circle, and I never went past the firewood circle beyond after that point. I needed some
Mhm.
kind of physical barrier from because it was driving me crazy. I'd have nightmares that I accidentally walked out of the circle, and so I had to
Yeah.
remedy that.
Yeah, yeah. I I can see that because when they put that garden down and it was touching the circle, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, if you're gardening, because it's easy to lose yourself, and then next thing you know, like you
Yeah,
slipped or
your
your
foot
foot.
slips, you roll out, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and later in the video, I moved the garden to a more central location. So,
Okay. Yeah, it's fascinating. And so this is how you became internet famous.
yeah, that video has over 340,000,000
Yeah.
views.
Yeah. And Mr. Beast is arguably, the biggest they have 370,000,000 followers,
Mhm.
and are they also on Netflix? Do they
The show was on Amazon.
on Amazon, okay. So, yeah, so this is big, and so for my Gen X, for my boomers, you may be thinking, "Oh, this is cute," right? No, this is massive. And so when Sean goes out in public, anytime he's around, high school, early college age
Mhm.
people, he is, he has, like he draws, like, Elvis-sized crowds.
I don't know about that, but you get a
I'm
line going for selfies.
Yeah. So tons of selfies, but really fascinating. So this I love it, and I encourage everybody to go. You can just look on YouTube, survive 100 days in a circle. And here we are. Like I guess the spoiler is you made it.
Yeah, right.
But it's still worth watching because it really is fascinating, and they keep throwing like crazy nutty things at you. And you're just going, what? So and that's the fun of it, right? They're sitting around thinking of the weirdest things they can come up with, which is basically what a bunch of guys are doing anyway. Now they're just doing it on YouTube.
Exactly. That's the whole point. The channel's some friends having fun, and
Yeah.
that's the core of it, and
Yeah.
the thing is that
Yeah.
the content's really for all ages. If you watch some of the earlier stuff, maybe it's a little younger skewed, but the stuff he's putting out now, this is not for kid it's not a kids show.
Mhm.
The Amazon show, Beast Games is, definitely for all ages. It's $100 million production. I mean, it's no joke.
Yeah, and this is a Gen Z man who's doing this, right? Young or
Mhm.
older
Yeah,
Gen
yeah.
Z.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy. So really, really amazing. And it really, to me, it also showcases the talent because, Gen Z, millennial, they take a lot of flack because they're a different generation and they do things differently and they have a different approach. But something like this is incredible that this person put together and built this company and this brand. So this is one of the things I think that's wonderful about America. But here you are now. You've become part of the Mr. Beast team, and you're in North Carolina, and this hurricane hits. So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey from the Mr. Beast YouTube talent team member to I am boots on the ground helping with hurricane recovery? And then now there's some other work that you're doing, and we'll come to that in a few minutes. How did that all come about?
Well,
that you made that shift?
they were working on a different show. I'm really only did survival content on the channel. That was kind of my shtick.
Mhm.
The 7 days on an island, 7 days in a cave, 7 days underground city. So like those survival videos. So we weren't doing any of that. It was actually some downtime for me, is what it was supposed to be. And then the hurricane hit, and they were just like, "Go and do whatever you can to help." And so I was a volunteer firefighter here in town, so I was able to get up into the disaster zone. And I just
Mhm.
went up there originally 'cause, Ryan Hall, the Y'all Squad, which is a weather
Yeah.
YouTuber.
Yeah. I knew him.
Oh yeah, it's great guy. He's like, I got
Mhm.
30 Starlinks. I need to get them on the ground up there. I said, not a problem. Let me run to the fire station. Let me find out what fire departments up there can take them and hand them out.
Okay.
We start trying to get a hold of people. There's you just there FirstNet, none of our comms are working. It's just a black hole for communications up there. Nothing's working. And I said, you know what? I'll just go up there. So I throw all my stuff in the
Okay.
car and I get up there. And as I get closer, I'm like, oh my God, it's terrible. And that was just
Mhm.
at the edge of it. And I get closer. I'm like, this is
Like heading into
catastrophic.
Asheville,
Yeah,
going
like
into
going up
Asheville?
I-40.
Yeah.
And then he hit Swannanoa Black Mountain. I was like, this is beyond catastrophic. I don't even know how to explain that.
Apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic is a great
Yeah.
word for it. And then you get into Asheville, and it kind of seems a little better because you don't realize that the other side of Asheville's been wiped out, right? You're
Mhm.
in a very so you get to the airport. Airport's fine, right? Like, but you go 5 miles the other way to the Arts District, and it doesn't exist anymore. And
Yeah.
so they
Along the
land.
river.
They land. The National Guard's there. They don't know what's going on because it's so early. They're looking for FEMA. FEMA's not there. It's early. It's like day two. Um, and this private jet lands with 30 Starlinks. And the reason the picture of me with the Starlinks um, and the police car is because the Asheville airport told me that they had to hold on to my gear. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, put your name on it. We'll let you have it once we talk to FEMA. And I was like, no shot. And so these troopers I had been talking with, I'm like, hey
Yeah.
man, I got to get these out today. If they go into their hands, it'll never happen. So
Yeah.
those highway patrols are like, look, we have authority here. We're state troopers, and they told the airport we're going in there and getting those, and there's nothing you're going to do about it. And those guys are heroes to this day because if they had not have done that, this could have
Yeah.
turned out differently. Because it would have been 9 days later before FEMA put the first Starlinks out. So we wouldn't have had comms for 9 days. I can't even tell you what that would have done to the recovery effort. And so,
Yeah. Actually, I know
yeah,
because my dad, my stepdad that I was telling you about before the show, he was a FEMA first responder for years. He worked under several presidents and he was in comms.
mm,
And so his job when he got deployed was to set up the comms. Like that's literally what he did. And so he was one of the first out the door. He had a go bag ready at all times, and there were days when I would come home from school, my sister and I would come home from school, and he'd be gone because there was a
disaster struck.
disaster.
Yeah.
Yep. Yellowstone, he was in the Virgin Islands. He was actually at
Oh
the
wow.
first World Trade Center bombing in '93.
Oh,
And so yeah, so he but that was his job was
right.
literally to set up the comms, for FEMA. And so I don't know what happened from then till now. Well, we kinda do know, but the fact that it would have taken 9 days, I can tell you that that was not the case when he was with FEMA, um, because he was
Yeah.
boots on the ground, like, on day 1.
Well,
So very interesting.
there was just a resistance to Starlink in general in government. It seems
Mhm.
the FCC canceled a contract that if it had gone through, there had been 19,000 units deployed in rural North Carolina. So there's just a lot of missteps made leading up to this that made it a perfect disaster. And so
Mhm.
we would get those units, and then the Highway Patrol basically escorted me back down to Swannanoa Black Mountain because I remember seeing a fire station through there. I was like, I need to get connected with the fire department so that we can get these out. And then we got a couple set up there. I gave some to Nick Soder and Chris
Mhm.
Hall, and they started handing some out as well. And they were like, "We can't get up the mountain. There's no way you. I don't care what kind of truck you have. You're not getting up the mountain. Like this is as close as you can get."
Mhm.
And I was thinking, well, we need a helicopter, and there was no helicopters. And we're sitting there talking, and I see a helicopter land at Black Mountain Elementary School. And I'm like, I'm gonna go see whose helicopter that is. So I just got in the truck,
Yeah.
drove, and I was like, hey, I need to use your guys' helicopter. we need to take these Starlinks. I've got a map. We know where all the fire stations are. We need to take these to as many fire stations as possible. And they're like, who are you? You know, we had a conversation. It was United
Mhm.
Cajun Navy. So that's how they came into the picture.
Okay.
So me and the United Cajun Navy hooked up like right off the bat, and I gave them 26 Starlinks, and we started setting them up. And then we immediately ran into issues. It was hard to set up because we don't have an internet connection. You had to put our personal credit cards in to set up an account. Like, I'm giving this to a fire station. I'm probably never going to see it again. And it was
Yeah.
taking a long time to, set the account up. And then as you add them to your account, they're all named this. It was a pain in the butt, basically. And so out of
Mhm.
desperation, I tweeted. I was just like, I posted on X and said, "Hey, Elon, please make these free for the disaster zone. Like, we need this. They just need to work. Just make all Starlinks in the disaster zone work." I don't think much about it. I've got 6,000 followers, and I
Mhm.
worked doing drone deliveries of baby food and heart medicine and stuff over the mountains with some drones. Somebody comes running up to me. They're like, "Hey, Elon just retweeted you. He said he's going to make everything free." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I went and looked, and my account was just like exploding because I just gotten retweeted by Elon Musk. But the best part was he's like, "Yeah, Starlink will be free for all the disaster zone."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because that put me so publicly in the disaster zone, that's how I kind of became one of the people that was just known as boots on the ground up there.
Mhm.
Um, and so then that would just lead to, delivering emergency supplies. We started doing hot tents when the cold weather came in, moved into RVs. And now with Operation Shelter, we're rebuilding a house for someone. We're going to rebuild one and then rebuild another. And until we run out of money, we're going to keep rebuilding houses up there. So that's kind of how I ended up in that. And I fell in love with that so much that I decided to leave Beast and basically go do my own thing. And they basically paid me to do full-time disaster relief for 4 months. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, keep helping them, keep helping them. Maybe he bought a ton of Starlinks. Like, they really, really let me do my thing.
Mm.
But I realized it's like, at some point, like, I can't just keep doing that, right?
Right, right.
We
Yeah.
need to go do it on my own. And so, we agreed. It was a very amicable
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
He's like, "Yeah, and if that's what you love, go do it."
Mhm.
And so that's how I ended up here. And but there's another transition that happened just a few weeks ago that I don't know if you want to jump into that yet or
I
not.
d I do in just a second.
Yeah.
I wanna take a quick break before we do that, but, it's I wanna go back to the disaster relief just a little bit,
Yeah, yeah.
but speaking of disaster, I do wanna let listeners know, because this is the perfect time to talk about this, in case you end up in a situation. I have a sponsor for this show. This is griddownchowdown.com. This is freeze-dried American beef, and it's really great, for any situation, as long as things don't get washed away, of course. But this is a pound of freeze-dried beef, and this is American grown, grass-fed, grass-finished, and this is one of the sponsors for the Mary Grace Show. Right now, if you go to their website, griddownchowdown.com, and you purchase a 24 serving subscription, you're going to get 4 servings free when you use the promo code Mary Grace. This is not jerky. This is actual ground beef. So anything that you would make, any recipe you would make with ground beef, you can do with this when you just add clean water. We're going to hear from this sponsor and one more, and we'll be right back with Shawn Hendrix, Mr. Beast talent turned philanthropist, survivalist, and data guy. We'll be right back on the Mary Grace Show. Don't go away.
Hello, I'm Jordan, and this is my brother. And I'm Nace, and we're at the Grid Down Chowdown. And this is Larry, who is a local rancher that we've partnered with. Now, Larry, you've been ranching for over 4 generations, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm 3rd generation, my son's 4th generation, and I've got some grandkids that are 5th generation.
Man, that's
We've
awesome.
been here for quite a while, yeah.
All right, now, Larry, your cattle is grass-fed, grass-finished, and pasture-raised, just like God intended them to be.
Yes, because I want to know what's in that animal,
Right.
what it's been fed, and so the only way to do that is for us to keep it all natural, just like God has done it for years and years and years, thousands of years.
How has partnering up with us helped you and your ranch?
Well, it's allowed us to develop a market that we didn't have before, one that can get directly to the consumer, and that's great.
And just remember, more importantly, with every package that you buy, we put a salvation track in there. So from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for allowing us to do what we believe that God has us here to do. And just remember, God loves you. He really does.
Amen.
Go to griddownchowdown.com. Americans spend more now than ever on healthcare, and we're sicker than almost anybody in the world. We've put our trust in a system that's completely let us down. Dr. Troy Sproul and the team at Synapse Center for Health and Healing have changed all that. They are a functional medicine clinic, and they get to the root cause of what's made you sick in the first place. Once they do that, they give you solutions to help you get out of that. This is the way that medicine was meant to be practiced, and this is what they're doing. They're changing the entire system from the inside out, one person at a time, and you could be one of those people. And so when you're working with the team at Synapse, they're giving you solutions and not just prescriptions. That's a game changer for me. When you set up a free discovery call with Synapse, you're starting on a journey of healing. You're starting on a journey of getting answers. And that's why I've partnered with them, because I want you to be healthy. I want your family to be healthy. I want you to have all of the resources that you need to steward the body and the health that God's given you. Go to officialsynapse.com and tell them Mary Grace sent you. That's Official Synapse, SYNAPSE. Okay, we're back. I hope everybody takes advantage of that. I am here with ShawnHendrix, and as you're watching the show tonight, I want to remind everybody, if you like what you see and you want to follow the Mary Grace Show and get more of this content, simply go to my website, marygracemedia.com, get on the email list, and you will get notified before we go live with shows like this and other great content. Also, any of the affiliate links, any of the partners that you've seen on tonight's show, if you forgot how to find it, simply go to marygracemedia.com and click on the shopping tab. You can find everything that we talked about and more. We have a number of America First companies that we work with, including our friends at griddownchowdown.com, where you can get that American-grown, grass-fed, grass-finished, freeze-dried beef. Every time you buy from them, you are helping save an American farm from foreign buyers, and that's a big deal. So thank you for supporting them. Thank you for supporting the Mary Grace Show. We're back here with our friend ShawnHendrix, and we have just gone from talking about his Mr. Beast journey to helping with the recovery effort in Western North Carolina, which is still ongoing to this day. There's a great deal yet to be done, and I wanted to touch on that because you are a co-founder of an organization called Operation Shelter, and I don't want to gloss over that because people are still needing help. We know that that President Trump's team has gone in and made some big changes in what's being done, and mobilizing the National Guard, mobilizing the Army Corps of Engineers, but there are thousands, millions of people who've been affected by this. So can you give us an update for now of what you see happening, and then also what you think still needs to be done and how people.
Yeah. So the Operation Shelter is a mission with the Grow Squad, or Here We Grow, which was basically a gardening charity to help people become self-sustaining. Giving the knowledge of how to grow their own food back to the people. And then when this happened, we were already set up as a 501c3. And, I started raising money with Operation Shelter and realized real quick I got overwhelmed and needed like a team behind me. And so that's when Here We Grow said, hey, like we'll take Operation Shelter on as one of our missions, and we'll help you navigate this stuff. And so it started out just being we're just raising money for tents. We're just trying to get tents with wood burning stoves, right? We have plenty of wood, there's no electricity, but people were going to freeze to death. And then we realized real quick that DSS was like, we don't know about tents. If you got kids, that might be a problem. And they wouldn't come out and say they wouldn't take the kids if we put them in a tent. And so we had parents that were just terrified to move into a tent, to have DSS show up. It never happened, right? But we moved quickly to RVs, and we found out the American people's generosity was just unmatched. People give us $30,000 and $40,000 RVs to just take up there. And I mean, it
Yeah.
was more than we could process. And Emergency RV stepped in, and that's another great organization. So when he couldn't get one, he'd send it to me. If I couldn't get somebody to go pick it up, I'd send it to him. And between the two of us, we would just constantly keep RVs pouring into the zone. But obviously, an RV is a temporary situation. They're terrible to heat in the winter. They don't last a long time. If a storm hits them, they can be blown apart. And so now we're back into that phase of, rebuild. We got to rebuild the houses. And we just announced a few weeks ago that we're rebuilding a house for a lady who lost everything. She watched her house float down the river. And this is a lady that did everything right. She was insured, but she didn't have flood insurance because, of course, flood insurance you don't buy when you're on a mountain. FEMA gave her $42,000. She spent that $42,000 before we even got permits, just cleaning the property up, which we ended up covering that cost. But just to give you an idea, just the dumpsters to haul the material off of her property, this debris, was $8,900. And that doesn't include the team with the excavators and all the workers. So $42,000 to rebuild your life, like, come on. And she's paid her house off 13 years ago. She's ready to retire, and now she has to start over. Imagine your everything you have is paid for, and then it's taken from you in one storm, and you're told you got to build it back up from the beginning, and you're years out from retirement.
And here's 10% of what you actually need.
Maybe 10%, maybe 10%, right? So
Yeah.
it's $200 a square foot to build right now. So that's what we're dealing with up there. Is just we focus specifically on families and elderly. It's just where we find that we can have the most impact. And Matt Van Swol, he and his wife Erin both joined up and are helping us. It's in a local home builder, and it's all locals. This is all North Carolina crew. We're not here and gone. Red Cross is out. FEMA is basically out. And so we're here for the long haul, and it's the attention's gone away from it. The money's dried up. It'll be a grind, but we're going to stay till it's done.
One question too that I have is about the bridges. I was explaining to people when you're in mountainous country like that, back in the Smoky Mountains and the Appalachians, a lot of people live on one side or the other of a river
That's
or
right.
a creek. And it's like this in our area too, because we're in the foothills of the Blue Ridge. So the closer you get to the Blue Ridge, you see this. You'll drive along a river or a creek, and every house is across a ford or a bridge.
Yep.
And the scale, just the sheer number of bridges that disappeared, or
Oh,
also the erosion of the riverbanks leading up to people's properties. And so bringing in a new bridge, it's not just a simple matter of going and finding the one that washed away, because you have to regrade the entire area, and in many cases put the creek bed back where it was.
yeah, and it's beyond the scope of a single household,
Yeah.
right? Your 10-foot bridge crossing that was built in 1923 with no engineering permits, at the mostly probably by hand, who stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Guess what? The government's not going to let you build that back.
Mhm.
It's going to have to be engineered, and they're going to want it to be impervious, right? And so they're going to want to be built to a standard where you're talking seven figures to rebuild bridges. And also, your river was 10 foot wide. A lot of times it's 40, 50 feet wide
Right,
now.
right. And
You know what it costs to bring in 20,000 cubic yards of dirt? I mean, it's insane. And so it's beyond the scope of a single household. And here's where the government's stepping in and saying, we got this money to rebuild these bridges. But I talked to my senator. I went up to Raleigh and spent multiple days up there going through this whole recovery bill. And I said, well, you guys are going to rebuild all these single bridges? That doesn't seem realistic. What are you guys really going to do? And he goes, you're right. We're not going to rebuild these single bridges. There's no way. We're going to have to rebuild one bridge, take land across the front of all these properties, and run a road.
access.
You know how long that's going to take to get eminent domain and get all these good old boys up in the hollers to give up their land and tell people are going to drive in front of their house to get to their house? It's going to be hell. I'm telling you right now, because they ain't going to stand for it. We've got first responders they had to park their truck on the other side of a river and hike across. We got 87-year-old man who's on the other side today, right now. This
Yeah.
isn't solved. They have to hike across a river to get to their vehicles. If he has some kind of medical emergency, the ambulance can't get to him. But try to rebuild. We're like, oh, we'll just throw a box culvert in. They're like, no, it's got to be engineered. It's
Yeah.
we don't think that's going to work. We're gonna have a different solution. But are these people going to hike across a river for the next 2 years
Mhm.
until all the legal
Mhm.
battles are done? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and just from what you're saying that it has to be engineered, I keep thinking of we put in a double concrete driveway with a double carport, at our
Hmm.
house, and that had to be engineered, and because of the structure of the carport, it had to be engineered against, like, a updraft or a wind shear, and so the footers had to be 6 feet deep
Oh
under the
yeah,
ground,
yeah,
um, just for our driveway and carport, and so most of our driveway you don't see because it's underground,
exactly.
and
That's where the money spent is
yeah,
underground. Yeah,
yeah, and so just to give people perspective, and, this is, it's just it's a project that the undertaking it's really the scope and the scale of it is beyond what most people can even imagine. Like we have somebody in the comments saying, why would they pay a contractor $8,000 to haul it away? Let's just be clear about something. You're in the mountains, in the hollers, and we're talking um, thousands of cubic yards of debris. We're not
yeah.
talking
It's
about a
not burnable.
couple of trees. We're not talking
You know,
about a little brush pile.
we
And
burned we burned trees for 3 days
yeah,
and still paid $8,000 because everybody else's houses landed on her property. We
yeah,
had cars. We had cars we had to dispose of. We had
yeah,
full vehicles, fuel tanks, just stuff you
right.
can't burn, and then
Toxic.
just
Yeah,
piles and piles and piles of trash, and we have
yeah.
to separate it, and so
Mhm.
it's a lot of work that goes into separating it because she doesn't want us to burn a bunch of toxic chemicals right where she's gonna have a fish pond and a garden,
Right.
so yeah,
Yeah,
trust me,
exactly. Yeah,
I
yeah,
I wish we didn't have to spend that money, but it's just the way it
mhm.
is,
Yeah,
and then,
and
somebody's also asking about Samaritan's Purse.
yes.
They by far are the gold standard of charities up there. They are currently still building houses up there.
Mhm.
You'll never find me say anything negative about Samaritan's Purse.
Yes, and also Mercury One, right?
Mercury One, oh man, Mercury One and Excel College are. Mercury One just had a post today that they're there till the end. There's very few of these nonprofits that want to stay away, want to stay once the money goes away. Right for the first few months,
Yeah,
Hurricane Helene raised money like crazy. Of course, every nonprofit wants to be there. But once everybody's
yeah,
attention goes away from it, that's when you can tell the real nonprofits, the ones that stay, because they're not in it for the money. The ones that leave, they were just there. And Red Cross does this where they take it, it goes into a general fund, and
yeah,
who knows if it ever gets spent there. That's why I won't donate to them. But Samaritan's Purse is there for the long haul. Mercury One's there for the long haul. Operation Shelter. I mean, they're local. We're North Carolinians. Carolinians. We're not going anywhere.
mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah, and Samaritan's Purse is headquartered in Boone, North
that's
Carolina.
right. That's right. Yeah, you
It's
can't
very
beat that.
yeah, really near where my niece lives, so that's where they're based, and so, thank you for updating on that, and also, when I was down there just driving, the short distance from the freeway from 81 down to Avery County, it was mind-blowing, because just the scale of how deep the water got. I
Mhm.
was driving along driving along the road and there were clothing items up in the trees. We're talking 40 feet up.
There still
Things
is today.
yeah,
It's still up
yeah,
in the trees. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's really hard to imagine. Now, if somebody wanted to take time to go down and volunteer, uh, what would be the best way if they wanted to organize a small group, a church group, a building, if somebody is a contractor that wants to organize a group of builders to volunteer? In the beginning, people were just showing up, which is what you did, but
Yeah.
you're also a first responder.
Right. There's
Um,
a difference.
yeah, and you had the skill and the know-how, and you were ready to fend for yourself when you went in.
Yeah. When I went in,
Um,
I was playing. I mean, you don't become a victim, and that's what happens. We called SUVs spontaneous unaffiliated volunteers, and usually SUVs become victims
mhm.
themselves because they don't bring enough to survive, especially in a really bad situation. So you don't. I don't want to encourage people to self deploy, especially now at this point, because you're just going to get turned away. There's a few things that this work's done is trust, training, and if they don't know you, they can't trust you around people. They don't know you could be a terrible person for all I know. And if you don't have
Mhm.
the training, you can't actually help. You actually can slow things down. So the advice is to get onboarded with Samaritan's Purse now, right? Go sign up with Samaritan's
Okay.
Purse, get trained, become trusted, and then they'll let them deploy you where they need you. It may not be Western North Carolina, right?
Mhm.
But it may be. If that's where you're at and that's where you're local, they're going to send you there. But if you're not in the system when a disaster happens, that's not the time for building trust and training, right? That's when we got to lean on people who are already in the system.
Yeah.
So, yeah, please go sign up with
Mm.
your local disaster relief agency. But find out who's in your area, who's going to respond to you. Check with your local fire department. See how you can become better prepared. It's going and helping people is one thing, but I always say expect a self rescue because for every family that is self sustaining, that's it's one less person a first responder has to respond to. And those who have the means have the money to prepare. I feel like it's your duty to be prepared so that we can go help those who aren't as fortunate, those who
Mhm.
don't have the ability to buy, pounds of freeze dried meat, and get
Yeah.
stocked up.
Yeah.
I love coming to a house and like, hey, we're good. We got 4 months of food, man. But there's a trailer down the road. They got like 2 bottles of water left. We're sharing stuff with them. Go help them. And we
Mhm.
heard that over and over where people were
Yeah.
prepared. And then we found a lot of people who had means that were like, we don't even have enough food to get through to tomorrow. I was going to go get groceries tomorrow. And so, but yes, expect a self rescue, sign up with Samaritan's Purse, and you can
Mhm.
really make our whole country stronger if you just do those two things.
That's so good, and if you think about our country 100 years ago, this conversation didn't even have to happen.
Right. It was kind of
Because
do or die back then.
yeah, and even when I was growing up, my relatives lived on a homestead basically, and there was months and months worth of food and a garden, and they survived through the depression, and eh, I've heard this a lot. People who were on farms during the depression didn't actually even know it was happening because they had the resources they needed. And so that's really what you're getting at. Now, I want to transition the conversation a little bit because now that we have had a change of administration, now that we have come into the first, I guess, 40 or so days of
Mhm.
President Trump's administration, everything is moving at what I call Trump speed,
Oh, yeah.
and the Doge team is hard at work. And um, this is another one of those situations where one person stepped forward to start analyzing data, and the next thing you know, Elon Musk is retweeting and sharing her work,
Mhm.
and then you got involved, and so for those who are new to this or who maybe aren't as active on X, I think everybody understands when we talk about Doge. I hope that you're up to speed on that at the minimum. But what we're seeing is that there are certain people who are really good at database work, at software engineering, and there's one person in particular known as Data Republican who started digging in to the data that Doge was uncovering and uh, coding and creating um, code to allow other people to search the data, which is like way beyond my pay grade. Um, and can you describe this journey of what happened with her, how you got involved, and how you are now transitioned to partnering with her and the work that she's doing to bring exposure and to make this data accessible pretty much to anybody that wants to look at it?
Yeah, actually, if everybody could go, let's see, click right down here and share the stream. we've got 1,200 over on X, and
Yes,
so
yeah,
if
we
you
got
could
a
share
huge
it,
audience, yeah, and the
yeah,
same
yeah,
thing on Facebook, please share it out, for some reason, they're not prioritizing live streams as much, even though we have almost 100,000 followers over there, they're kind of in a little bit of a
yeah.
retarded.
X is really starting to grow on the live streaming side
They
of it.
they're
So
doing really well. So,
yeah,
yes, please share, please retweet, please tag people, and we're also live on YouTube, and who the heck knows what's happening over there, but hi to my YouTube people, and
that's
hi to
right.
my all of our people. Thank you for being here tonight and watching. I also wanna remind everybody, go and, get on my mailing list at marygracemedia.com, and you will get an email before we do streams like this. And hopefully Sean and I will be back on another stream. This is a great conversation. So we'll keep this conversation going. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the work that you're doing. This is
Hmm.
incredible because you're at the forefront of this information revolution that is completely going to transform the way that Americans money is spent. I mean, it's a huge deal, huge.
Yeah, it actually goes all the way back to the Mr. Beast stuff. She
Okay,
had watched me. She has kids, and she had watched me on that
okay.
channel. And then when I started doing the hurricane relief stuff, she was one of my subscribers who was paying $5 a month on my X account to help me do this stuff and help
Mhm.
support Western North Carolina and do this work. And this is back before anybody was. She wasn't a household name at this point on X. And so she'd been following me for a while. So there was a trust built of seeing like, oh, this guy's a public figure. He's out helping people. And then she posted, hey, I'm really struggling with my internet speeds and I need some help with Starlink. And I said, hey, I'll fly out and set up an array for you. And she's like, sure. I was like, you know what? This is a fascinating person. I'd love to go meet her in person. Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I jumped on an airplane, flew out to where she's at. And this was back, we don't use her name. I
yeah,
was
yeah.
honored she would share her location with me because she's a anonymous account. And when we got there, I got the internet set up. It became a conversation. She's like, look, I'm in over my head. This is a lot. And I'm like, I get it. I had the same
Yeah.
thing happen when Elon retweeted me. I got immediately buried by inbound attention. And she's like, I feel like you've done this before. If you could help me, that would be great. And so I was like, I would love to. You're doing such important work. And so it became my job this was before we knew she was going to get doxxed, right? We knew it was just a matter of time. So we put
Mhm.
a plan in place. And I sat there and told her, I said, you have a plan, when it happens, it's not an emergency, it's an execution of a plan. So when it happens, we're going to do this, 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 and this. This is how we'll use it. This is how we'll spin it back to be something good. And sure enough, it happened. We executed, and it's still not great, right? But we had a plan, and we were able to keep her safe.
Mhm.
If you guys don't know, Data Republican is deaf and mute. So if she was to get swatted, that's a terrible thing. So we had talked to local
Mhm.
police,
Mhm.
and so this is all stuff that's, I'm not sharing any secrets here. It's just how the world is these days.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we took all its precautions weeks before we needed to. And so that's how I kind of got involved, is to help
Mhm.
facilitate security, media, and operations. So she can do what she does best, which is build tools. She's a database kernel engineer who builds tools.
Amazing.
Um, she's not a media person, right?
Yeah,
She's not an
yeah.
influencer. And really, all the tools do is take publicly available data and start connecting all the lines. And you can just go onto datarepublican.com and type in a charity and start seeing where all the money flows. We were seeing people who'd be very upset on Twitter or on X, right? And just ranting and raving. Well, let's take their name and see what they're involved in. Oh, look at that. They're a recipient of a lot of this money that's being cut. And so
Yeah,
they act like they're clutching their pearls, and it's like, oh, you're upset because you're losing $1 billion.
yeah, yeah.
And so we took away their veil of secrecy. And we believe that AI is going to end government secrecy, and that's a great thing for the people, right?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, this goes all the way back to the Cold War when the CIA was formed. The politicians back then were terrified of an unmitigated police force, kind of like what Germany had during Hitler's time, right? And so this idea of secrecy is the death knell to democracy. And so being able to use AI and use these tools to basically say, look, we're going to know where every dirty dollar goes, and we're going to hold you accountable for it. And you guys who got your hands in the piggy bank are getting unelected. And now to come on here and say that, you can go to the website, you can look at the publicly available data. It was hiding in plain sight this whole time, but now there's a tool to make sense of it. And so now it's like all this, and then now we're working on relationships where, okay, there's this person who's got this money. Who's he related to? What charities are they a part of?
Yeah.
And you start drawing those lines, and it starts to look really bad for people.
There will come a day when they will not be able to walk down the street.
No.
And
as you can imagine, that makes people very upset. So
sure.
That's why we gotta keep her safe.
Yeah. And I want to define some terms again, because we're streaming on multiple platforms. There, you used a couple of terms that I want to make sure people are understanding here. Doxed is literally when somebody who is an anonymous account, when a nefarious actor takes and finds their contact information, name, address, phone number, private information, and puts it out publicly, which is against all the terms of service of any social media platform. But once it's done, it's done. Then the other thing, swatted, we've talked about this a little bit, but this is where somebody puts in a fake call to the police, and they make it sound like not only is the person in danger, but they're a danger to themselves and everyone else. And that precipitates a SWAT team raid on the home. It's a type of murder by cop.
It can be, yeah.
It can be, especially when you have somebody who is deaf and mute, who could be perceived as resisting because of the confusion that would ensue. If the cops come in and they're telling somebody get down and the person can't hear, obviously that's an issue. And so I just wanted to define those terms so that people understand the gravity of what happened to Data Republican. You anticipated that this was going to happen. You and her security team discussed it, made a plan, and put that plan in place for the eventuality of when it did happen. And I'm looking at the comments here. People like Data Republican will be hoisted as national heroes. I believe that.
I think so too.
Because of what she's doing. And it wouldn't surprise me. And if you're listening, President Trump, or anybody on your team, this is a person that I believe should have the Medal of Freedom, because of the work that she's doing to bring this data and information in a way that's accessible to everyone, and putting her life on the line to do it. And these are the heroes that really should be celebrated, because nobody has to do this. She didn't have to do this. She's a mom. She's, has a life outside of this, had a career outside of this, and decided to do this. So it's pretty amazing what we're seeing. And for people on Facebook, I'll speak to you guys for a minute, because I've shared a lot of the information that she's found, and sometimes people question, well, where did this come from? How do we know it's true? I want to reiterate what Shawn said. This is open source information. It's been there all along. It's just that nobody had nobody had the ability, or nobody had simplified access in such a way that the public could go in and search this information and these databases. And that's what Data Republican has done, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And a lot of it has to do with the way charities are structured. It's called a Form 990. It has to be publicly, you're not paying taxes, so you have a higher level of visibility to the public. And so it's just the way the charities are structured, and it was just hiding in plain sight. And it's not like this is something, she's not hacking anything, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like we have a secret hard drive we found or something like that. This is just, she said, and since she's naturally a tool builder, she's like, I want to understand this more. So she started
Mhm.
building tools and started posting things. And people are like, I want to do that. And now
Mhm.
anyone in America can go to datarepublican.com and literally do your own research. Like
Amazing.
it's no longer, you don't have to believe me. Like, please don't believe some random talking head on the internet. Go, by all means, go put the guy's name in, see if we're lying. That's the
Mhm.
worst part about it, because they can't do the typical, this is misinformation, I'm being framed, this is just because I'm against President Trump or whatever.
Mhm.
You can go and look at the data very quickly and go, no, you're a liar and you did do this.
Right.
And so that's why it's so powerful.
Right, right, exactly, and think about this, guys. This woman is getting death threats. She's getting doxxed, uh, because she has made it easy for the public to search public information.
Yeah, it's
I
like
I
somebody
want you to
threatening Google,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like, think about this. Think about the gravity of this situation, what the how big this can of worms, how deep this Pandora's box goes, that somebody really, it's like she found the key, and now everybody has access to the master key. That's what she did, and, anybody can look. Yeah.
Yeah, and the ruling class does not like to be questioned. How dare you? How dare you doubt my my desire to spend this money? You know what I mean? Like, it's such
Yeah,
a
yeah.
elevated position. Like, how it's literally, I just keep thinking of like the how dare you meme from Greta. How dare you?
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
they're
Yeah.
so incensed by it, but it's like, what do you mean, how dare I demand explanation of how you spent $1.4 billion of my money? What are you
Mhm.
talking about? Explain yourself.
Mhm.
Show the receipts. So,
Yeah, yeah, and there's a meme. I saved this meme the other day, and I'm just gonna hold it up to the screen because it's so funny. This is basically what's happening right now. I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay, leave the people stealing our money alone, right? This is what's happening.
yeah,
The
yeah.
histrionics and the pearl clutching. That's where we are.
Well, the thing is, there's a fundamental belief. I'll use the National Weather Service as an
Mhm,
example. I'm a big weather guy. I love storm chasing. I've checked the weather multiple times a day. It's
mhm.
just, I love weather.
Yeah,
And they started cutting NOAA and National Weather Service, and just the pearl clutching, just like, oh my God, how people are going to die. But the premise that I asked the question, I said, is this the only government organization that's run at 100% effectiveness? You mean to tell me the National Weather Service has no room to cut anything?
yeah.
So their premise is, if you cut $1 from another National Weather Service, you want people to die. But it's that
Mhm,
black and white of the
mhm.
left that, oh, you cut $1 of cancer research, you want kids to die. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Who says how effective has the cancer research been? Why can't we ask questions? Can we look at the billions and billions we spend on children's cancer research and say, was it effective? Or did it
Right.
just push leftist ideology? Can we look at the National Weather Service and see how much of this is keeping people alive and how much is pushing
Mhm.
climate change agenda?
Right,
Right.
and they
So,
pick
of
things that they know conservatives would generally support. So, for
course.
example, cancer research is like, if you don't support that, you're a monster. No,
Right.
we don't support the waste
Right.
of, the excess grifters that are hanging on and getting a salary for doing nothing. And, an example is that they let go, a handful of probationary employees at the VA. I think about 1,500 out of, here's the part
Yeah.
where they bury the
Exactly.
lead every time. It's out of 470,000 employees,
Exactly.
and they're
Yeah.
still probationary, which means
0.2%.
that they haven't even taken benefits yet. They haven't even gotten through the trial phase of whether we're gonna let you stay.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I, for one, know for sure, having been to the VA recently, that even in our local VA clinic, there's a handful of people behind that reception desk that are doing nothing but gossiping and yammering while 2 or 3 people are doing the work. So,
Exactly.
I hope they were in that, uh, group that got let go. But
And
what the left does is they turn these things and say, "He took away VA employees and, you people love the veterans and Trump hates the veterans and they try to gaslight you and tell you that because of this, now the president that you elected because of his love for veterans actually hates them.
Yeah.
And it's just I'm like, the mental gymnastics that they do, is, like, death defying.
Well, and it's
The
even bigger picture than that,
Yeah,
right? Is if you love cancer research and the National Weather Service and all these things, right? If we do not
yeah,
turn this country around on debt, none of it is going to exist. We are going to fall
yeah,
off of a cliff. And I use the house like a household analogy. Like, of course, my kids love going to Disneyland. I'm not going to run myself bankrupt. My kids don't want to go to Disneyland more than they want to have a home, right?
right.
And but like, let's say braces. Oh, braces are good. Kids need braces. But
Mhm.
what if I had to sell my car to get the kid braces? Now I can't go to work, so we lose our home. Is braces good still? No, it
Mhm.
would have been good, and it is a good thing, but losing the house is worse. And so their premise is we have
Right,
unlimited money, and we just don't. And we keep printing money, and we're being taxed by
right.
inflation,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
no one seems to care. And here's what I would love to happen. I'd love to go look into the National Weather Service and go, "Oh my God, this is the one government agency that's 100% efficient." Then we
Mhm.
would take and model everything after it. That's just not gonna be true. That's not how the government works. It's
Right,
maybe
right,
10 to
right.
15% efficient at best.
Right, and again, going to National Weather Service, I was talking about this with a friend, and one of the meteorologists that she follows, actually has bragged in the past about how good they are at, weather, and I think they've even developed their own AI and things like
Yeah,
that, and now they're crying about the National Weather Service, and she's going, "Okay, which is it? Are you 100% reliant on the National Weather Service, or are you good enough that you can get by with a tiny percentage of their workforce being laid off? You can't have both. You can't brag
right.
about how good you are and at the same time cry when, like, a low level, coffee carrier at the at the National Weather Service gets laid off. Like,
Yeah,
it can't be both ways. And was it if it was operating at 100% efficiency, um, then it would be the only organization on the planet that can't
right,
trim the
right,
fat.
exactly. It's all in one. And
Yeah.
for really what we need to focus on is the real crisis in America right now, and that's the price of eggs. Right? I mean, like the fact that they're on and on about the price of eggs. Something Pete Buttigieg or whatever you say his name, he goes that a billionaire, the price of eggs doesn't really affect a billionaire much, but to the
Mhm.
average family, the price of eggs is a real disruptor. And it's like, how many dozens of eggs is a family eating a week? Are they eating 20, 30 dozen eggs a week?
Mhm.
And even beyond that, it's like the fact that their platform is the price of eggs and government inefficiency. I,
Right, and that
it's kind of
Trump didn't
wild.
fix that, and they pick one thing and I loved last night in Trump's speech where he literally just came out and said, "Biden messed up the price of eggs. Let's be clear. That's on him. This is a spillover from what he
Right.
did, to mess this up.
But
We're fixing it."
even be more clear,
Yeah.
the price of eggs is not catastrophic,
Right, right.
right? We use maybe a dozen, 2 dozen eggs a week. If they
Yeah,
doubled in price, it's not the end of the world. They're
yeah.
acting like it's the end of the world.
Break the bank. Yeah.
Can we not talk about how the price of groceries have doubled
Yeah.
in the last 4 years? My
Tripled.
most
Meat.
expensive, yeah, triple, yeah.
Meat.
My most expensive bill that I have is feeding my children. It's
Yeah.
bigger than my mortgage now. But
The
now
3
we're
ki
going on
3
about the
kids,
price of
right?
eggs. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, that's expensive. Yeah, I
So
mean, it's like it's almost cheaper just to buy a cow.
well, we
Um,
do, and that's coming from a family that raises their own meat. Like
yeah.
imagine if we had to buy meat too. I just don't know how people are doing it, but the price of eggs, that's what they're upset about right now. We're not going to talk about the 80% inflation we had over the last 4 years.
It's disingenuous virtue signaling is what
It
it is.
is.
We've
Yeah.
seen it over and over,
It's
and
panic mode.
right, exactly, and, to me, that means we're winning, and I'm so grateful for I wanna go back to Data Republican for just a second because
Yeah.
I feel like we're on the cusp of something big in this country, and I think that we are in a revolution that is people led. And one of the things that President Trump talks about a lot, he said this last night, is this is your government. It's your money. It's your taxes, it's your tariffs, like, it's all yours. And
Mhm.
and so when you see people like Jenica, her name is Jenica, Data Republican, when you see this, it's so to me, that's exactly what he's talking about. And you going to Western North Carolina, the people showing up, boots on the ground, building houses. This is the America when we
That's right.
talk about make America great again, we're not talking about some crazy patriarchy where only men go to work or, whatever it is that the left would say is the definition of a great America. No, we're talking about exactly what we've described on today's show, which is people being industrious and taking personal responsibility and taking responsibility to help other people when it's needed and warranted.
Yeah.
That's the greatness that built this country. And that is what we're celebrating. That's one reason I wanted to have you on the show because of what I saw you doing down in North Carolina and you're continuing to do, and then also what we've seen Jenica do. And I would love to have you back here to follow up
Yeah.
and to keep people abreast of what's going on. Can you tell people one more time how to follow you, how to support the causes that you are involved with right now, and then we'll call it a night.
So it's my name. It's at the ShawnHendrix. And I post mostly on X. I mean, I do post on Instagram and Facebook, not quite as much. And then there's a link in my bio on X that takes you to everything. But for Operation Shelter, it's called thegrowsquad.org. And but yeah, if you find me on X, you'll find links to everything that I do. You'll see the homestead progress on X. You'll see the work we're doing, Data Republican. You'll see the house we're building for Operation Shelter. But if you're not on X, like X is the future. Like you gotta get on X.
Yeah, I would definitely say that. Now, I will say to my Facebook friends, we always talk about this, and so it's okay to cross over and do both. It's a different kind of community. They're both really important, and I do appreciate all the love that we get on Facebook. But again, I'm sharing so much of what I find on X because it's in the moment, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty of what we have there in that community. And also, all the memes and everything are over there.
Right.
So it's really fun, and that's where you're getting up to the minute news and real-time information. And now we have Grok, which is kind of incredible. I've been using Grok, um, and somebody posted today, "Grok it, don't Google it."
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm
Google's
doing that.
biased.
Did you
Yeah.
get Grok 3? Did you get the app?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Grok 3 is amazing.
Have
So I
you
was
talked to it yet?
100%. Last night I had a whole conversation on
Yeah.
pulling permits, septic tank permits in Lenore County. Like, what does it look like? Oh, I did a whole thing on haying 7 acres. What size hay, what size baler I needed, what kind of mower, how many pounds of
Wow.
seed per acre. I'm telling you, it's phenomenal. It's like having a conversation with an expert on a topic. And I
It's
got through,
amazing.
and I'm just walking around folding clothes and organizing the bedroom while I'm having a conversation about things that are on my mind that I need to solve.
And are you using the what is it? I'm gonna pull up Grok now. I hadn't planned on doing this, but it's pretty amazing. So one my friend has an Android,
Hmm.
and she is kind of beside herself because she was on Grok in the beta, and now she can't get it. And
Oh, really?
she's like, "I need my Grok. I need Grok."
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I use it all the time when I'm
Yeah.
driving. I just turn it
Yeah.
on and I just brainstorm with it.
Were you in
Um,
assistant mode? Is that what you do?
that's what
Assistant
I
mode?
use. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they have different voices in Grok, and so Kid Rock last night was uh, I think at Mar-a-Lago, and he was doing oh, I don't see it on here. It's not the conspiracy. Okay,
Unhinged.
the unhinged. I don't see it. Maybe I need to update. But there's also a conspiracy mode where you you ask it what's going on and it says, "Oh, I am so glad you asked me that because,"
Yeah.
and then it goes it literally it's like having that one friend at the party that's telling you all of the conspiracy theories about anything that happens. Like, well, if you say, for example, like, "Why was Melania wearing a gray dress at the speech last night?" If you ask conspiracy grok, you're gonna get like crazy. You're gonna go down crazy rabbit trails. which I don't know if you've done that yet, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's I don't know, it's fun. So that was a little rabbit trail for us, but it is X is a really amazing place to be, and I'm trying to build over there. It's happening slowly, little by little.
You got to post. You got to post often. They
I
love the
know.
reward activity.
I know, I know. And it's kind of it's a love-hate thing because I post and I never get more than like they keep me at 3 to 400 views.
You got to use the app. That's the trick to X. You got to use the app. You got to reply. You got to be part of the community.
Yeah.
That's what it's looking for. It's looking for user minutes, user appreciation, and so like that's why I kind of live and breathe X.
Yeah,
And it
we'll have
works.
to
It works if
talk.
you do that.
Yeah, let's talk offline. So, because I definitely, I mean, I have that dialed in with Facebook, and now it's kind of I want to do both. Okay, so it is time for us to shut this down tonight. We will be back again. Follow marygracemedia.com, get the updates, and we will be back here for another show soon. Thank you again, Shawn Hendrix, for being here with us tonight. It's been
Absolutely.
a pleasure to have you. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you very soon over on X. Goodbye.
Bye.